Thank you all. Good afternoon. My name is Joe Alexopoulos, and it's my pleasure to be here today to speak to you on behalf of the Zeitgeist Movement and to talk about the evolution of economics, a present mad economy versus a resource-based economy. But before I get into that, I want to tell you just a little bit about my background, who I am. I actually went to school here at USC. I got my MBA here. I'm a certified financial planner and a certified fraud examiner, and I work in Century City as an investment manager for wealthy individuals and as their personal financial planner and advisor. As a hobby, I like to ride a bicycle around on long-distance solo trips, and on those trips, I like to critically think about our socioeconomic system as it is today, and as I see that it can be, as I've learned through understanding what the tenets and principles of a resource-based economy are. However, to be able to fully appreciate and comprehend what we have today, a present mad economy, and to be able to understand and appreciate what the tenets and principles of a resource-based economy are, we kind of need to step back and outside of our comfort zone and our perceptions. So much so, I can kind of illustrate it best if we were to travel in a time machine and go back 500 years ago or so to when people used to think that the Earth was flat. And not only that, back then, Copernicus had the outrageous theory and idea that, wait, maybe the Earth goes around the sun, and it's not the other way around. You see, perhaps maybe your point of view is so narrow that perhaps maybe it's backwards. The relationship you have with money is a relationship you will have before you're born, throughout your entire life, and even after you're dead. But just maybe the way that you have been perceiving and understanding the socioeconomic monetary system today is not quite the way it really is. Just like as if we were all back 500 years ago, and I was Copernicus, and I was telling you that the world is round and it's not flat, and maybe the Earth goes around the sun, you'd all go, Joe, look, you're crazy, you're nuts. Look, let's get up really early. We'll go down to the beach. We'll watch that sun come on up on the east. You'll see that the sun goes around the Earth and it settles over in the west. So, you know, end of story. We don't need to talk about this anymore. Clearly, we can see that the sun goes around the Earth. And if you still don't get it, Joe, then we're going to take you up top of the mountain. And you can look as far as you want. Look, the Earth, it's flat, you moron. It's flat. You know? Come on, you need to go out in a boat. We'll go for a sail ride. I'll show you. It's flat. But maybe, just maybe, that small fraction, that alternative way of looking at things, using your imagination, perhaps is the correct way to look at the socioeconomic model you live in today. So, what I'm asking you to do is to go on a bit of a journey. Pretend you were back 500 years ago. And pretend that the information that you're going to hear, you're going to judge the information based upon the quality of what it is. Does it make sense? Not based upon where it's coming from, whether it's MSNBC or something like that. See, information, like your perceptions and values are shaped by the environment you live in and the experiences you have had. Take, for instance, the way that I'm dressed. All of you think a certain way of me, and I notice this depending upon how I'm dressed, on your perceptions. See, this thing, it's called a tie, if you will, is really a metaphor for what I consider a social leash. The moment that you put a tie on, you take yourself off, and you put on the behavior, values, and beliefs and understandings of the institution that is making you put that on today. And so perhaps the way you're seeing and perceiving things is as if you've got a tie on. And so let's loosen it up a little bit. Let's even go so far, let's take the tie off, all right? Let's reconnect our minds to our hearts and gather a little bit more of a better understanding of the way this world works. No, we're not going to go that far, but I just want to make a point. I just want to make a point that the information I'm giving you shouldn't be because I went to school here and have an MBA and studied macro and microeconomics. It shouldn't be because of what I do. It should be because it's true. Information always goes through 3 phases. Truth does. At first, it's ridiculed, like, Joe, the Earth, it's not round, okay? The sun isn't the center. We go around that. It was made fun of, okay? But after it's made fun of and it's venerated and hated, eventually it's widely embraced as truth. So what I'm asking you to do is to put your beliefs aside for a moment. Try and not believe everything you've been told, because your beliefs not always are correct. You have to appreciate in the middle of the word belief is a little bit of a lie. You know, your being's on one side, your life is on the other, and in between, well, maybe it's not what you thought. So, with all of that said, what is a mad economy? A mad economy is what we live in today, and it's known as money as debt. All money, I don't care if you use US dollars, euros, shekels, francs, you pick it, doesn't matter. It all comes from a centralized banking institution. Over here in circle 1 is what we have the genesis of money today. DIG, debt, interest, and with debt and interest, add in a little bit of time, what do you get? It grows. This circle here, if you will, in order to pay the interest on the dig, you've got to create profits. But a profit, if you think about it, or creating a profit on something is very much akin to like a debt. When you create a debt and you ask for interest, the interest doesn't exist. The person has to artificially go out and inflate prices or whatever to pay the interest. When you go and you build something or invest, there's a cost. Say you build a building or something, you sell it for a profit. The profit is just as fictional as the interest. So while the dig implies growth, and this one keeps growing, it's like, then this one has to keep charging more money or inflating its prices to pay for the more interest. So it just goes round and round and round. And in order to keep it going over on this side, where all of us have to run around, we're actually in the business of creating problems for profit. We're not in the business of solving problems. We actually can't afford to solve problems today. Like take, for instance, simple, if you're a pharmaceutical company and you actually cure something, after your patent runs out in 17 years, and then your competitors can get in and the price drops, and or even better yet, it's like smallpox, and you cure everybody, well, guess what? You're out of business. So we can't do that. We can't actually employ people in really full-time, all meaningful jobs. We have to do a lot of what I call needless complexity in the finance, legal, banking, insurance, because fake make-work jobs work like an economic leech on the actual productivity of goods and services of the actual productive part of the economy. But what that does by burdening those systems, with that, it inflates the price, or it pushes the price up so that the profit can be bigger, so it can go back, and it goes round and round. But the net effect, as this goes round and round and round, it holds the standard of living down. It holds back new technologies. Because if a new technology destroys an existing profit model, we sweep that under the rug. Or if a new technology is too expensive or doesn't make a profit right out of the gate, we don't do it. So think about it. You've got billions of people entertaining this stuff over here, needless complexity, problem for problem, fake it, fake make work, and make it the break. And in the middle, it was there earlier, okay? I think some of you saw it. We can play the tape back, all right? But in the middle, the real crime here, the real waste, it's not just the pollution and everything else like that. It's the wasted lives. It's the time. And the most profound thing that we lose, and it's in this one here, in the middle, this same thing's on the other one. The biggest thing we lose are ideas. And ideas are what are the predecessor of new technology that lifts the standard of living. And so we're wasting billions of lives, trillions of hours and ideas that would elevate our standard of living to a level that is truly unimaginable today. Just in the same way someone from 500 years ago couldn't even grasp the concept of the earth being round, imagine trying to explain a cell phone call. So all of us are just that primitive today because these billions of ideas are not coming to fruition in the mad economy that we live in. So if we can switch gears, if you can go on that mental journey and that change your perception, take the tie off, and appreciate the tenets and principles of a resource-based economy, you will see that we can turn it around and we can start moving forwards instead of the other way, backwards. And as a result, our socioeconomic system doesn't hold ideas back and keep the standard of living and technology down. It supports it and lifts it to a higher, unimaginable standard of living. And what's really interesting, if we start this thing up, fire it up like a lawnmower, all right? We begin by surveying, tracking, and determining the needs that we have. We move on, we set up production, distribution, look at feedback of that. And what's really interesting is with the technological advancements, like, during the transaction from a monetary or a mad economy could happen naturally if we actually fully embrace the technological advancements we have today. Because just think about it. If you come up with an idea which then leads to a new technology, which is labor saving or what have you, and it reduces the cost. If we actually had a completely free market that wasn't retarded by having to make profit, which is fictional, just like to pay the fictional interest on the fictional debt, it would drive the prices way down to the point where it would be like taking a breath of fresh air. Whereas if you could get the cost of something like a breath of fresh air, where it cost absolutely nothing for me to consume it or procure it to the point of consumption, there's no reason to bother accounting for it with money or prices. You see, as technology rises, you can push prices down. If you really, the billions of ideas out there were to manifest themselves and become a reality, we would just sweep money right out because it would become irrelevant. We would embrace hyper-deflation. That's what we want. We have, because of the old system, a chronic, gross, and horrific case of what I call VD, a value disorder, where our values are backwards. We put profit above everything else. We actually have a disorder in our mind in thinking that, oh my God, the unemployment rate has reached nearly 10%. That's a crazy way to think about things. Shouldn't you actually think that, wait a minute, the reason to go to work is not to have to do it again. It's to go there and get the job done so I can move on to something else. We should be thinking, we need to get our technology, our processes, and our efficiency so high that, oh my God, it's the employment rate that reached 10%. Can you believe the employment rate is up to a voluntary 10%? That's outrageous. We got to get that employment rate down. We got to work on our technologies, implement our ideas, save our resources, and let's go on vacation to the beach to see the world the way it really is. So we're losing ideas, and what ideas are, which have vanished again. I is imagination. As Einstein said, imagination is far more powerful than knowledge. Knowledge is like knowing what temperature it is outside. Imagination is beginning to comprehend the understanding of how weather patterns work. And that's inside all of us. Ingenious, innovation is part of ideas. Deflation is part of ideas, or a result of our ideas. And E, to evolve your thinking, evolve the economy from a mad economy to a resource-based economy. And A is automation and abundance. And finally, S, we can get into the business of solutions. So I beg of you all, you're all going to probably see another movie in a month or so. If you haven't already, make it Zeitgeist Moving Forwards or Zeitgeist Addendum or both. And please spread this information around. And if we can switch gears, we can go from a mad world and a low standard of living to a high standard of living. We can go from financial, employment, and security worries, crisis, all that stuff, not applicable. Goodbye. Ideas are few. They're restricted. In a mad world, which is what we live in a mad world, an idea is hoarded. It's patented. And if you try and copy it, I'll sue your ass. What? But it didn't cost you anything. Yeah, but we don't want to talk about that. Ideas are many. And the best thing is they're shared and they're transparent. Today, we have things called trade secrets. Whereas if you come up with an idea, we make it a secret. How does that benefit society? You got it backwards. You know, profits are above everything else. That's insane. A profit is as fictional as the interest on a debt. But the environment and fellow human beings are real. Huh? Does not make any sense. Poverty, wars, pollution, those are all parts of the problems for profit part of the cycle of a mad economy. That is going, gone. Imagine. High stress, a minority of free time, and as they were saying earlier, that stress is one of the leading degradations of our health. Gone, our health would go up, more free time. You'd have to here submit to a high amount of obligatory employment that we actually are brainwashed into thinking getting the employment rate up is good to a job you don't want to do for no purpose that's needlessly complex. It's just dumb stacked on top of stupid and dumber. Low voluntary unemployment. Wonderful, more free time. When was the last time you really wished you had less vacation time? For that same person that gets upset about the unemployment rate going up should be a person that's upset about having too much vacation time. It's insane. Scarce and inferior quality, Jason was talking about this. We go to abundance and we only build the best. Imagine just building the best. Why would you build a cheap thing? You build a cheap thing in the mad economy so that you can maximize profit. Yay. But that's really, well, stupid. You know? Limited access to healthcare. What? Isn't healthcare the very thing we all need to live healthy? Why would you limit that? Depending on what you can afford for your health insurance is the quality you get? That's crazy. That's mad. Don't we all share and need the same things physiologically at the very least? So there's so many things. I really just implore you to really open your mind, to open your eyes, change your perception, take the tie off, and understand that maybe, just maybe, the world is round. The earth goes around the sun, and that your perceptions perhaps need a bit of a change of perspective. Thank you very much.